Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Unlearn with Bianca. If you're here for the first time, then welcome. On this podcast, we explore everything around self-healing, health, personal growth, the mind-body connection, relationships, and more. Hey guys, welcome back. I hope everybody is doing well. Today, I feel like having a bit of a brain dump and just getting some random points across to you guys. I'm going to do an episode on some powerful realizations that have changed the way I move through life. Some of them will be quotes, some of them will just be concepts I've thought about. But yeah, some of these are really powerful and have really shifted the way in which I perceive life and how to show up. And before we jump into this episode, I just want to share and celebrate that this podcast has now been running for a year. A whole year. I know I haven't stuck to every single week. Most weeks I put out an episode, which I'm really proud of because, to be honest, I have been someone in the past who has struggled to be consistent, but I know it's the key to making neural changes. I know it's the key to changing our reality. It's the key to success. And I'm really just proud in committing to my word. So, sometimes if we don't celebrate ourselves, no one else is going to do it. I like to practice what I preach, and I think it's important we stop and appreciate how far we have come, even if we're still not where we want to be. So that's what I'm doing. And I want to say thank you for you guys, all of the followers following along, because sometimes it feels like I'm speaking out into the ethers, but I know people are enjoying these episodes, so that gives me motivation to continue. I did say I was going to get some more video content. I'm currently sitting in bed in my dressing gown. So we will postpone that until next week. One thing about me is I'm definitely a nana sometimes, and I've come to embrace that, but I do want to get this episode out to you guys, so it's better than nothing. Okay, so powerful realizations that have changed the way I move through life. I don't know how many I'm going to share. I've got a few notes next to me, but I may think of more along the way. So let's just jump straight into it. My intention is to share how some of these realizations have really helped me reframe ways that I'm looking at things in life and, just my perspective. And I want you, as you're listening, to really think about your own beliefs and what you believe. And hopefully you'll have some aha moments. There also might be some things that you're not sure about or you don't align with, and that's totally fine too. This is more of a brain dump for me to you, and take what you want. So number one, the first thing that really shifted the way I looked at my health is what you consume goes far beyond what you eat. And this kind of idea always stuck out to me because often we place a lot of emphasis on physical health and nutrition and exercise, especially in this case, that word consume. We automatically think nourishing and eating, but there's so much more that we need to be aware of day to day that comes into our energy field that we consume, e.g. just take in, often without even realizing. And this can completely shift our nervous system state into one where we're on more high alert, where we feel shut down or overwhelmed. So media and information. I think this is a huge one, and I have become really mindful of the content I read, what I watch, what I listen to, because it deeply influences our thoughts, our beliefs, and our mood. And sometimes I'll catch myself when I'm bored and filling in time, I'll jump on a news website, stuff or something, and then instantly I can just feel myself feeling overwhelmed. There's a lot going on, especially in those times where we have a lot on our plate, and it can trigger stress and worry. So this is really important. If we are in like a regulated state, if we're in a good place, perhaps there's a little bit more leeway as to what we consume in this respect. What I want to get across is it's okay if you are not engaging in certain material, certain things. It's important to be informed, but it doesn't mean that we need to constantly be taking in information, because we're still consuming it and it's definitely impacting us at a subconscious level, especially these days when there is so much. We are so overloaded with all sorts of stuff. If we're not mindful, it can be coming at us in all ways. The other thing that we want to be mindful about consuming is people and relationships. The people you spend time with play a significant role in shaping your self-view and shaping your emotional state. And if we can find people, and I say find because often it is like we have to go searching for people, create community, friends that are supportive and they are aligned with their goals or they have the same hobbies, we feel more motivated. We feel that positive energy. Whereas toxic relationships can really drain your life force, they can drain your energy. Of course, there's some people that we don't get a choice about being around, co-workers, certain family members, but we do have to really think about where our power is and how we can show up in a way where we're not as pulled into other people's stuff. I've also put down your self-talk, your internal dialogue, the words that you speak to yourself. It is a constant form of consumption because we're with ourselves 24/7. So yes, like I've said on other episodes, we can slip into negative self-talk, but really becoming aware of the consistent thoughts that you're having, really practicing nurturing self-compassionate thoughts, that is totally underrated. So a huge part of my growth has really been becoming more mindful of what I consume, especially during periods when I don't have as much energy. Just being mindful of the people, being mindful of who I've got on social media, being mindful of how much media I'm engaging in. And this is something that I encourage you guys all to do. Just take stock and think about what is energy giving versus energy draining. And that's where you can start. So the second realization that really shifted my perspective is a quote I came across. Now, this isn't the exact quote. I wrote my own version on my notes pad, and I also can't find who originally said this. So it's by Anonymous, but it goes something like this: 90% of how we respond in the present is based on a wound from the past. And that always stuck with me when I first read this somewhere, wherever I read it, that so much of how we respond in the present moment is based on experiences and wounds that are often held in the body, in the subconscious mind, that can drive us to react in ways that seem out of proportion to the present situation. For example, if somebody dismisses our opinion today, it might trigger feelings of abandonment from a past experience. Even though the current situation is minor, our response could be big because it's not just about what's happening now, it's about the unresolved wound that it brings up. And again, it's an unconscious thing, meaning we don't even know why we're responding. It's something that is beyond our conscious awareness. So why this really shifted things for me is because I started to get really curious about my triggers, patterns that were continually coming up in my life. And rather than just not take accountability, or I guess responsibility, I started to think about connections to the past. I started to think about repeating patterns so that I could have the choice to move into a place of responding rather than reacting. It's not like you need to search through and unpick your whole past, but I think it's really important to know what is consistently coming up for you and how that may tie in to your previous experiences. Because when we have that self-awareness, we then have a choice, a conscious choice when that same pattern seems to come up again. I guess the acknowledgement is that our past does shape our future because our brain and our nervous system, they become automated, they work out of safety. When we can be open, just open to exploring some of our past wounds and how they're still showing up, especially in our relationships, I would say, or our self-talk, that is really powerful. And it's a thing that takes a lot of accountability and a lot of courage. Okay, the next one that really, really helped me just piece some things together and show up in a new way. You let go of a lot of weight when you stop expecting people to turn up as you would. I'm just going to pause so you guys can let that one replay in your head. You let go of a lot of weight when you stop expecting people to turn up as you would. Now, this idea, what I got from this idea is that often we are carrying a mental and energetic weight around and expectations when we expect others to behave, think, or respond in the way that we believe we would in any given situation. And when people don't meet these expectations, it can lead to frustration, disappointment, and resentment. And don't get me wrong, I think it is really important to understand, reciprocity in relationships and have our boundaries and our expectations. But what I have learned and what has given me so much peace is that people are just going to show up as they choose. They're going to show up as them. We can't hold them to this expectation that they are the same as us. When we let go of expecting others to be like us, we free ourselves from these heavy emotions and this constant frustration, and we stop taking the actions personally and just accept them as they are. And this makes our relationships easier and less stressful, and it doesn't mean that you're not going to be triggered from time to time, but it helps you let go of the responsibility, and you are not trying to control other people's behavior. You see things for what they are. So when we can do this, and when I've practiced doing this, I have gained this sense of peace, knowing that ultimately I can only work on myself. So I guess my advice on this to you is just that focus on you. Like, focus on how you show up, what you bring to the world, what you give to others. Have boundaries, have expectations, but don't think that someone else is going to respond and react exactly the way you would. They might not have as much emotional capacity. They may not have had the same experiences, and they may see it in a different way. So much of my frustration used to come from thinking, how could they respond like that? How could they react like that? Like, are you not thinking about anyone? Are you not seeing it in the way I am? How do you have that point of view? It used to cause me so much frustration. So if you find this one difficult, just know I've been there too, but we can really work on it and bring it back to what you can do. Okay, another concept that really helped me move through life differently is knowing that your nervous system will always choose a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven. Basically, that means that as humans, we often choose unconsciously to stay in situations that feel uncomfortable but familiar, rather than stepping into new situations that might be more positive but they're unknown. They risk the unknown. And this tendency is because our brain has a preference for predictability, for safety, for automation. So even a familiar situation like an unfulfilling job or a difficult relationship or just like a constant limiting belief that keeps coming up, even if it isn't ideal, it feels safer to our nervous system because we know what to expect. The unknown, on the other hand, can feel intimidating and scary because it lacks predictability. And our nervous system often interprets unpredictability as a potential threat. So we stick to the familiar as a form of self-protection, basically. This is important to know, I think, because once I knew this, once I really understood this and I learned about the brain and neuroscience, I knew I wasn't going crazy. I knew that fear is something that we all as humans experience as we change. And when we recognize this tendency, it means that we can really make more intentional choices and explore and sort of lean in. That's actually funny that word comes up, lean in, because on a side note, my girlfriends and I, we were out for dinner and we came up with the phrase that we are in the season of leaning in. Because I love that kind of analogy. Anyway, we lean into the unknown with curiosity and openness rather than beating ourselves up thinking like, why have you not taken that step? Why have you not done that? Why are you self-sabotaging? Our brain and our nervous system, they are designed to protect us. So everyone has these feelings. And I think it's a relief to know that, because it means that those uncomfortable feelings that come with change, that come with stepping into the unknown, they're not going anywhere, but we can build our capacity to hold them. There might be a few people that are really comfortable with just jumping, but I think most of us, it's that unfamiliar uncertainty that you can learn, that you can train your nervous system to become more comfortable with. First of all, give yourself some credit if you're doing anything at all, learning a new skill, doing a new hobby, anything that's out of your comfort zone. Remember that confidence and competence, really, learning a new skill, that is something we can practice. And that is something that we can build. It doesn't necessarily just come. It's not something that we're born with. We can take steps to build this, but also know that there is growth in the unfamiliar. There is growth when we allow ourselves to really move through the uncomfortableness of change and we take steps into the unknown. There is so much growth there. I truly believe some of the best things that I've done in my life have just been because I've taken that step into the unknown. So it's never too late. And know that although your brain's trying to protect you, your nervous system's trying to protect you, you can take steps and it will get easier. Next one that always stuck with me, that really shifted my perspective, is that you can't heal in an environment that you got sick in. So how I interpret that is that you cannot heal in an environment, whether it be an external environment such as a place, such as a situation, such as a particular relationship that contributed to your stress and illness or emotional pain. I think you can heal. It's just going to be a lot harder unless you're in a place of safety. But it also, more so, I think, refers to, when I think of environment, I'm thinking internal environment. So how you nourish your body, what thoughts are going on consistently. That can either boost your health or it can contribute to a dysregulated nervous system, which can be at the root of illness. I think if I had heard this message in the depths of chronic illness, I would have thought this was really dismissive. But the more I have been through, the more I have experienced in life, I really get this. Okay, the next quote that I love, that I was like, oh, this is so true, and this is just, I've had an instant mindset shift, is crazy is being right too early. Crazy is being right too early. What I took from this is that we need to be questioning everything. I think of it in terms of how times are changing so quickly. And even with the work I do, how this wasn't really a thing. I mean, it was a thing, but it wasn't as easy to access the mind-body medicine and holistic health, and that it wasn't really recognized even 10 years ago, right? So things are happening really quickly. And I often think about people that are pioneers in their field that have been studying and speaking on particular things for so long, and they're labeled as crazy, they're labeled as weirdos, and things come to fruition and then they are top of their field. They're really renowned and recognized and finally given the credit they deserve. I actually read that book, The Body Keeps Score, by Bessel van der Kolk, in I think it was 2016, quite a while before it became quite big and popular. And I thought at the time, I was like, he really deserves so much for this book. I was listening to an interview with him, and I think he wrote the book it was 15 years ago. I may be wrong, but it was a long time ago, right? And it's finally become a Bible, basically, for the mind-body connection. So there are so many people out there like that they just really stuck to their passions. They stuck to what they intuitively knew was their truth, basically. And I think that's a really important thing to remember. We need to be questioning everything. I think it's really important that we start to really listen to other people's perspectives on both sides of arguments, and really hearing and trying to think about why someone is thinking that way, just going that extra step. because there's many people I don't agree with, but I can understand why they think in that particular way, and I'm sure you're the same. So I guess this quote, crazy as being right too early, it's just reminding me to step out of my own shoes and into someone else's shoes and embrace our weirdness, embrace our quirks, and stand strong in an opinion, but also be respectful of others. Yeah, if anyone needed that message, there you go. I hope this is encouraging you just to question, to research, to be informed, to look beyond your echo chamber. The next thing I have been thinking about is that when we don't make a decision and we're sitting in that like way up of all these different decisions, it can take up a lot of mental energy. And that is something called decision fatigue. And this happens when the mind is constantly weighing options and we're deliberating over choices and worrying about the potential outcomes and, all of that. I have learned the longer that I stay in indecision, the more mental energy I'm spending, which leads to physical drain and especially brain fog. There's always going to be an opportunity cost, right? With anything we do, we are going to have an opportunity cost, meaning that we're missing out on something and we're gaining something. So I think it's just this reminder that in this world where we have so many options, if I think about where I'm at currently and perhaps where previous generations were, there's more options, which I'm so grateful for in terms of what we can do, especially millennials and younger. You can go to uni, you can work, you can travel if you're privileged enough to, like all these things, right? Buy a house. But with all these possibilities, there's going to be opportunity costs. Yeah, I think the point is just keep taking steps forward because everybody is going to be doing different things. Don't try and make things perfect. It's perfect decision and choice, because that's another thing I think that's really prevalent in today's day and age with like social media. And I think we try and do things so perfectly, but that's not life. And life doesn't go that way. So make a decision, roll with it. It's the best one that you can make at the time with the resources you had and how you felt at the time, and that is okay. Okay, there's my list. I've sort of lost track of how many I've given you guys there, but now I want to go into some more recent realizations I've had in the last few years as I've really rebuilt myself. Just some more aha moments that I have had. So one that's coming to mind is that the opposite of trauma isn't healed, it is aliveness. It is connection, it is curiosity. The opposite of trauma isn't healed, it is play. It is presence. This is a quote I came across by Lexi Florentina on Instagram. It was a bit larger than that, but I've sort of like condensed it down a bit. But that really stood out to me. Like, so true. I think sometimes when we're interested in personal development and we're healing through our past and our traumas and the effects that they've had on our mind and body, it's easy to get really caught up in healing and this constant desire to like grow and improve, and it can feel quite heavy. I have been there before. And moving through the other side of grief, I take that back. There's no other side. Moving through grief, something that I've really had to allow in and make it okay to allow in is the lightness. And that is the aliveness and the connection and the curiosity and these things that bring light and life force into our lives. We are not looking to be healed. It's not a destination. The path of healing, that's going to happen forever. There's always going to be stuff that comes up. There's always going to be blocks that we move through. We can grow, absolutely, but we don't want to forget to live. I think this is really important. So aliveness, connection, curiosity, not taking things too seriously, humor, presence, like actually being able to be present with yourself or in conversation. These are all huge, huge wins for anyone that has moved or is moving through trauma. And if you're listening and you're resonating, like, congratulate yourself when you allow these feelings in and you notice these feelings, because I know sometimes there can be complex emotions that come up, like, is this going to last, or is it okay that I feel happy again, all those things. But they are so part of the journey. And yeah, essentially we're not looking for healed, we're just looking to find our spark in life again, I think. That's what I'm getting at here. And another realization and learning I've had, something I've been sitting on and really interested in actually, is the biological differences between males and females. There are biological differences. It's not a blanket rule for everyone, but in terms of the brain, the hormones. Women tend to have more connections between the left and the right hemispheres of the brain, which can contribute to more of a balance of logical and intuitive thinking. And there's a Dr. Lisa, I haven't got her name, I'll have to put it in the show notes, but a psychologist that I've been reading a lot into, and she sees some really interesting facts. Men have more white matter with left brain dominance, and that supports the analytical tasks, the focus, problem solving, and their ability to have that real singular attention. So why this has been interesting to me is because I've really made an effort in the way in which I'm learning to communicate with the males in my life. I'm the only female in my immediate family. I have male clients, a lot of male friends, and I just find it really interesting in the way in which we take in information. Obviously we have the same deep desires and need for connection, all the rest of it. But I do think that, and I'm going to say this, and I may be putting myself in it here, but I do think as women, we sometimes expect men just to show up as us, just like us, and get frustrated if that's not the case. And the more I'm reading about the differences, the more I start to see the strengths and the uniqueness, and just think about how I can communicate better for certain people in my life. I think as humans, we all have so much to learn from each other if we're in the right state, if we're patient. But I have found it really interesting. And, I have spoken a little bit about masculine, feminine energy and how we all need to be able to access both energies. But I think females at the moment, like I got to this point where I was feeling really burnt out and just in the way I was showing up and the way I was approaching life, and I just knew it wasn't sustainable. And I know a lot of people were feeling the same way. So I guess research into neurochemistry and hormones and that kind of thing has really helped me understand myself and why I may be feeling the way I feel too. The next one is a quote I came across that said, "Tune into what is being born and let go of what is dying." This quote just really reiterated where we put our energy and where we create space. So tune into what is being born, let go of what is dying. Basically, put your energy and your focus into where you're heading. It comes and it ties into that conversation around identity and who we want to become and the beliefs of that person. The person I'm becoming, how do they show up? What are they like? How do they talk? How do they act? How do they treat others? What are their habits? When we can get a picture of who we're becoming, where we can start to detach from the previous version of ourselves. Of course, action comes into it. We need to start taking action steps forward. But when we can tune in to who we want to become, we have an image of where we're heading. And we need that. We really need that to grow. We are not stagnant. We can change, but we need to allow ourselves to think about the future in a positive way, because so often, and again, it comes back to that brain safety mechanism, we are using information from the past. We're unconsciously visualizing previous situations from the past that didn't go so well, negative experiences, and we're projecting that into the future. So we're seeing the future negatively. We're holding on to the past and projecting that it will be the same in the future. Whereas when we open up to change, possibility, what may be born, who we want to become, it's just, again, that curiosity piece that's really important. And that kind of ties into my last point, actually, which I've said on other episodes, and that is give yourself space. It is okay to be in the unknown. It's okay to be in that liminal space. I think that's what they call it, the void, where you're kind of moving through something and you're unsure, or you're not like who you used to be, but you don't really know where you're heading. That's okay. I've learned that that's totally okay to be in that space. It's not comfortable, but it's okay. I think it's acknowledging that we can be in that between space, but also giving yourself physical space, knowing that if you can find pockets of time to reflect and just be. It's really, really important for us all in a world where we are trying to keep up with everything and anything and tick all the boxes and do the next thing. It's just something that is really been important for me to remember, is like it takes a bit of time to reemerge. If you've gone through change, if you're moving through chronic illness, if you're going through a breakup, and it's okay that it takes time. Don't forget that. One thing that I became really mindful of as I was moving through grief is how easy it could be to cling on and naturally bond via trauma. And that might be in relationships, friends, but there are many opportunities when we're going through a hard time to really bond through conversations. Yeah, they call it trauma bond. When we meet someone at a particular phase in our life where we're not feeling super grounded, and it's something to be mindful of. One of the things I look back on and I really am glad I didn't do is just jump into any decisions too quickly. Again, relationship, work decisions, like just different things in life, knowing that when we're moving through uncertainty, when we're moving through a between phase, it's just going to take some time. We're going to come out a different person. We're going to have new values, often new beliefs, and just to allow yourself that time. You don't need to rush your process. I really feel like I need to say that right now. You can just go with it and take your own time. I can't stress that enough. Someone said to me through grief, I don't know if it was this year or last year, but I was like concerned about some decisions, especially for work that I was making and like what was the right thing. And this person said to me, you just need to do a bit of trial and error, like there's no right or wrong. You're re-emerging, you're finding your new self still, and that's okay. And it's part of it, not having to have things perfect again and just experimenting. I think that's really important as we move through any big life changes. Okay, so we've come to the end of the few points I wrote down. There's actually so many more I could speak on as I'm sitting here, but this is getting into a long episode, so I'm going to leave it here today. I hope that you've taken what you needed. If you have any questions, because I did race through these, or you want me to send you resources, you're welcome to message me. Again, I just want to thank you for following along and being here. I've really enjoyed this journey of the year of podcasting, and I feel like it's just given me so much confidence in my voice and sharing what's on my mind, knowing that people out there are relating and also needing this information. So thank you. I hope you all have a stunning week, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.